Thank you. We will now proceed ahead with the ceremony for Judge-elect Kelly Wall. Remarks for her will be made by Gregory L. Nestor. Mr. Nestor?
President Judge Hodgson, judges of the court, elected officials, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. I'm going to go out on a limb here and tell you that I'm likely the first man in the history of Montgomery County to have the pleasure of introducing his ex-wife as the next judge of the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas. Like many others, including some in this room, I worked pretty hard on Kelly's campaign. In fact, you might have heard my campaign slogan, "Reduce my alimony, vote for my ex-wife." I'm personally glad to see that so many of you responded to my pleas. Abraham Lincoln once said of another person that, quote, "he can compress the most words into the smallest ideas of any man I ever met." That quote always struck awfully close to home to me personally. So today, I shall hope to use fewer words, yet try to convey to you greater thoughts. Kelly and I went to law school together. Now, when we were in law school, Kelly was what we call, I guess I'll call it a law geek, okay? You know, the kind of person who sat in the front row, took copious notes, and she even tape recorded every lecture. And then she actually took the time to go back to her apartment and transcribe those notes from the lecture and add them to her personal notes. Her course outlines would often exceed the size of the assigned course book. I always tease her about that now, but the truth is I'm glad she did it, because without her notes and outlines, not only would she not have made it through law school, neither would I. As a law student in the days before a final exam, Kelly would become a little tense. We had an arrangement one semester where she was to help me with, ironically, family law, and I was to help her with constitutional law. One day we were studying for a constitutional law exam, and we were talking about the War Powers Act. I told Kelly, I said, think about it in these terms. President Clinton had just sent troops to Somalia. By what authority did he do it? And is that authority consistent with the intent of the framers of our Constitution? Kelly, being quite tense at the time and feeling the pressure of the exam, told me in no uncertain terms that she didn't have time to discuss Clinton or Somalia, and I could take all this current affairs talk and shove it up my something or other. I wanted to just focus on the exam, is what she kept telling me. A couple days later, we go into the exam room and we sit down to take the exam. Can you imagine what the first question on the exam was? Discuss the War Powers Act and the constitutional authority, if any, for President Clinton's decision to send troops to Somalia. There was always another side to Kelly, though. One spring, just after final exams, it was one of those beautiful spring days. It was the first day where the sun is shining, the weather is warm, and you can break out the shorts for the first time. I think between us, we probably had about $10, and our big decision at the time was whether to spend that $10 on a haircut for me, which I desperately needed at a time when I had hair, or spend it on an ice-cold six-pack of Wilson. Kelly didn't deliberate long before concluding that my grooming be damned, and we were off to the store to get the goods. And one last story I want to tell you about Kelly that I always swore to her that when she got elected and I had a chance to talk to a lot of people about her, I was going to tell this story. One day, I think we were in law school, or maybe just out of law school, I don't remember. I'd come home at the end of the day, and Kelly was in the kitchen. Now, for those of you who know Kelly, that's an unusual sight in and of itself. But she was in there, and I go into another room, and it was my birthday or something, so she was making a special dinner. And over the course of the next several minutes, I kept hearing swearing from the kitchen. I thought I was in a loading dock or something with the words that were coming from the kitchen. I would hear her throw things. I would hear the microwave turned on and off, the oven door slammed. I went in to see what she was doing, and I saw these potatoes at some point in a boiling pot on the stove. Then they would be removed from the microwave. Now I'm talking whole potatoes here. And then they would be put in the microwave for a while, then back to boiling water, then in the oven, then back to the microwave. So finally I said, Kelly, I appreciate everything that you're doing for me, but you gotta tell me, can I help you? What is it that you're trying to make? And she said, I'm trying to make twice baked potatoes. I said, stop. Think about what that word is. Twice what potatoes? Oh, yeah. So that was one of those nights when dominoes, I think, came in handy. Anyway, just a couple of weeks ago, I received a phone call from an old law school classmate of ours. Now, I've not heard from this guy in years, probably 15 years, and we were catching up on old times. I mentioned to him that Kelly had just been elected to the bench. I was struck by the absence of surprise in his voice, as he simply said, yeah, well, all of us knew that was going to happen one of these days. Those words simply passed by me at the time. As I thought of them in anticipation of this day, I found them particularly insightful and appropriate. To those of us who know Kelly, her election to the bench is a logical and natural progression of her life. Those of us who know Kelly have always known that she's instilled by her parents with certain core values that she cultivated through her life experience. Those values form the basis of her character and will ensure her wisdom, the wisdom required for success on the bench. Kelly has always believed that one person can make a real difference in the life of another, and she's always strived to be that person. Whether it was teaching adult literacy to inmates at Gregory Prison, volunteering at a homeless shelter in law school, her involvement in mentoring programs, or as she has done throughout her career as a practicing lawyer, working with kids and families in crisis, Kelly always found the time and had the ability to be a positive influence in the lives of others. It is in this spirit that although overjoyed to be assuming her place on the bench, Kelly was saddened as she prepared to leave her law practice. She told me just this past weekend how hard it is to no longer be available to the clients who over the past several years have come to depend on her. Throughout her practice, Kelly tended to follow the lives of her clients, particularly the children whose interests were entrusted to her. To her, the clients weren't just a job. They weren't just faceless people who were forgotten when the case file was marked closed. Kelly never allowed other people's problems to obscure their opportunities. She did more than represent them in court. She really listened to them. She counseled them. She made time to laugh with them and at times cry with them. She held their hands when needed and kicked them in the rear end when necessary. Kelly understood that sometimes it takes just a few moments to make someone's day and help someone with their own personal dreams and endeavors, especially when that other person is looking to you for support. This approach is indicative of Kelly's character, her compassion, and her genuine concern for others. Kelly often told me that she generally saw people at the lowest point in their life, and it was her goal to see them through to a better time. Nothing pleased her more than to be invited to a graduation or other special event in the life of a young person whose life she touched. Someone once said that at the end of the day, we're not measured by our public achievements or by our possessions, but rather by the difference we make in the life of another person. With that as our yardstick, Kelly's accomplishments are immeasurable. For Kelly, today is her milestone, her day to celebrate the achievement of a lifelong dream, and a day to humbly accept the responsibility of the task before her. It gives me great pleasure to introduce and present to you a skilled practitioner of the law, a terrific mother, my friend, and a person truly deserving of the title of Your Honor. Next Judge of the Court of Common Pleas, Kelly Wood.